Hello and welcome back to the Air Armoury. I'm JRH and today I'm looking at the Nikko Stirling Mountmaster 3-9x40 scope with Parallax Adjustment and Illuminated Reticle. Okay, so I've said in a number of videos that I'm not a massive fan of scopes, and that's why I always include a section talking about and testing the open sights in all my gun reviews and videos. But in reality, it's not really that I dislike scopes, it's just that I prefer and enjoy using the open sights more. But as you'll have seen over the course of the Air Armoury, I've been using scopes more and more, and here we are now at the first video dedicated to a scope. Now this Nikko Stirling is actually a significant step in my airgun journey, as owing to previous reluctance to really fully embrace optics, this is actually the first scope I've ever bought on its own. All of my other scopes, such as my little Gammo 4x20 on my BSA Super Meteor, my Remington 4x32 on my Remington Express, and my Edgar Brothers 3-9x40 on my Hatsan AT44 have all actually come with the guns. So I haven't actually bought them based on the features I wanted. Now let's take a closer look at the Nikko Stirling Mountmaster. Unboxing very briefly. Inside you get an Allen key for making adjustments. The instructions, spare battery, the scope itself, which has got mounts on it already, and elasticated scope cover, and a Nikko Stirling cleaning cloth. So this is the 3-9x40 IR/AO scope, and I'll quickly run through what that means before looking at its features in depth. The 3-9 is the magnification, 40 is the size or diameter of the objective lens, IR stands for Illuminated Reticle, and AO stands for Adjustable Objective, which means that you can correct parallax error, which I'll explain for anyone who doesn't know when I come to it. Now the scope has a 1-inch matte black alloy tube. It's waterproof, fog-proof and shockproof, and it has multi-coated lenses in it. Now looking first at the objective lens, as I've said, this is 40, so that's 40mm or 4 centimeters in diameter, and the larger the objective lens the more light that it lets in. So comparing that to this little 4x20 on my BSA Super Meteor I've already mentioned, you can clearly see the difference in size there, and the Nikko Stirling is twice the size, so lets in far more light. As I said, the magnification on this scope is 3-9, so it's variable between 3 and 9 times magnification, and that's adjusted using this ring here, and you can see that in real terms. Here it is at 3 times magnification, zooming in to the maximum 9 times. Now for the shooting idea, I would have been fine getting a lower fixed magnification scope, something like a 4x32, but it's quite nice having the flexibility that a variable 3-9 gives you. Now moving on to the reticle, this has got a mil dot, which is nice, as all of my other scopes have just got standard crosshairs. You can hopefully see the mil dot here. Now the good thing about these reticles is that you can work out how far or how many dots over, under or to the side you need to hold if you're shooting at different distances, and that means that you don't have to re-zero your scope whenever you're shooting at different distances. As I've already said, this model has an illuminated reticle, which is excellent for giving your crosshairs more definition against the target, especially shooting in lower light conditions. You can illuminate it red or green with 5 levels of intensity for each, and you can adjust that by turning the turret on the left here. Turning on the illumination, here it is on red stage 1, 2, 3, 4 and the brightest 5. Then turn it again to turn it off, and then green 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the brightest 5, and then turn it once more, turn it off again. The power for the illumination is provided by way of one of these flat watch style batteries, and that's located in the end of the turret itself. And to get to that, you just unscrew the end like this. There you can see the battery inside. And as you've already seen, if the illumination is switched off or there's no battery in it, the scope still works, you just have a standard black reticle. As I mentioned earlier on, this scope allows correction of parallax error. Parallax is basically when your crosshairs and your target are not properly in focus with each other because they're on different focal planes. Now, to demonstrate that, I've put 2 nails in the side of my bench. The smaller first one is going to represent the scope or the crosshairs, and then the second larger one is going to represent the target. When the camera representing my eye or my head are directly behind them both, it's fine, as they're lined up, albeit that because they're at different distances only one of them will be in focus. But as soon as I move the camera either side or up or down, although neither nail is moved, they're no longer in line with each other. So here we are looking down a scope without an adjustable objective, and you can clearly see if I move the camera around, the crosshairs appear to move across the target. Now, this is an extreme example, as you're very unlikely to be moving your head or your eye around this much independently of the gun, but it serves to illustrate the effect. As I said, that's because your crosshair and the target are on different focal planes, so being able to correct the parallax basically brings them both onto the same focal plane. Now, going back to the nails, I've moved them together to represent them being on the same focal plane. So now, when I move the camera side to side, they stay lined up. Now, most scopes without parallax adjustment are factory set to be parallax free at around 100 yards, but the adjustable objective on this scope can be changed anything from 30 feet all the way up to infinity. Now, I don't know what usable distance infinity will give you, but the specified marker before that is at 300 yards. Now looking through the Nikko Stirling scope with the adjustable objective set to the correct distance, and you can see that if I move the camera around, the crosshairs don't float around over the target like they did in the other scope, and both the reticle and the target are both crisply in focus. The scope came with mounts. It's got a weaver rail mounts, as you can see, already on there, but it also came with a set of standard dovetail mounts. Now, these mounts actually do look quite good quality, and they've got a recoil stop screw in them as well. I'm now going to use these mounts to put the scope on my Hatsan AT4410 using the Allen key provided. I've now mounted the scope and set it up so that I'm happy with it. Now, as you can see, there's not a lot of clearance, if any, with these mounts, but they do seem to be okay, which is good, as I don't really want to have to put any higher mounts on it. Now, I've focused it using this fast focus ring at the back, which is nice and easy to do, although really I'd prefer to be able to turn the whole eyebell to focus it and then secure it with a locking ring. Now, I've set the focal distance with the adjustable objective at the front there, and I've zeroed the scope using the windage and elevation turrets, which, if I remove one of the covers, you can see are finger adjustable rather than having to use a coin or a screwdriver or something. And for information on how to zero a scope, make sure you check out the Armoury video on the subject, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. I'm now going to give the scope a test. I'm going to fire 10 pellets at one of these card targets at my usual distance of about 12.5 meters, and to do that I'll be using 8.4 grain Aeron's Diablo Field pellets, and for anyone who's interested, these are the 4.52mm ones. So here is that target. Now, I'm really happy with that. That's probably the most accurate and the tightest grouping I've shot so far on the Armoury. Now, I know I'm using an accurate rifle and pellets, but I also think it's due in no small part to the Nikko Stirling Mountmaster Scope. And to give you a comparison, before I put the scope on, I shot 10 pellets at the same distance using the same gun and pellets, but with a 4 times magnification scope without parallax correction, and you can see that here. Here are the two targets in comparison, and the improvement in accuracy the Nikko Stirling Scope has given me here is clear to see. Now I've also got another target here to show you. One of these Gamma zombie targets which you've seen before. I didn't film myself shooting this target as I was just playing around with the scope and I wasn't intending to feature it in the video, but it turned out to be quite a useful test, so I thought I'd mention it. Now I started out by shooting at the bullet hole here, and then at the eyes, and then at the tooth on the left here. Now this hole is quite tall, as you can see, and that's because as I got towards the end of my airfill and the power dropped off, my point of impact began to fall. So what I did was then change my target to this tooth on the right here, and I tried using the mill dot to compensate for the lower point of impact, and I found that towards the end of my fill, if I hold the reticle 1 dot high, I can still maintain my accuracy relatively well. So there you've seen the Nikko Stirling Mountmaster 3-9x40 scope with parallax adjustment and an illuminated reticle. Now before I move on to any kind of conclusion, I just wanted to make a brief musical analogy for you. I'm a musician, I play guitar, both acoustic and electric. Now I love acoustics, they're great, you can just pick them up and play them, but they do have some limitations compared to what you can do with an electric guitar. However, even with the best electric in the world, you're not going to get anywhere near the best out of it if you've got it plugged into a terrible amplifier. I think that's similar to air guns. A rifle with open sights is like an acoustic, but as soon as you mount a scope on it, it becomes like an electric, with the scope playing the part of the amp. So basically, no matter how good your gun is, you're not going to get the best, most accurate performance out of it if you've got a poor quality scope mounted on it. And the more I use scopes, and the more I start to move away from some of the basic scopes you get with some guns, the more I think that rings true. Now I know some people out there may say that this Nikko Stirling is still a relatively cheap scope, and it's certainly not the best one out there, but it's all relative. I really like it, it's excellent value for money, it suits my needs perfectly, and you've seen the potential it's got for improving my accuracy. I've already made good use of the mill dot. That illuminated reticle is excellent when the light starts to fade on those lovely summer evenings, and it makes all the difference having both the target and the crosshairs in sharp focus and parallax free. Now, how much does one of these scopes set you back? The Mountmaster is one of the more budget ranges from Nikko Stirling, especially considering that their Diamond Sportsman scope has a retail price of £700 or £800. Now this model has an RRP of £86.99, although lots of places sell it cheaper than that. I bought mine online for £40.29, and including postage that was still less than £50. So excellent value for money, especially considering that it comes with mounts, so I definitely recommend getting one. Now you can get a cheaper Mountmaster scope if you're happy with a smaller objective lens and magnification and you're not bothered about parallax adjustment or an illuminated reticle. Standard no frills 4x32 Mountmaster has a retail price of less than £50, although I found a number of websites selling them for less than 20, including mounts. So thanks for watching, be sure to check out the other Air Armoury videos and subscribe to the channel, and until next time, keep your arms in the air.